everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we are going to be doing the analysis slash commentary for episode 25 of Miraculous Ladybug season 5, Conformation. Wow, it's gonna be one of the last times I'm saying that for season 5. Anyway, I don't want to get too emotional. I already cried once this morning. before I even saw the episode, I woke up and I was like, it's the last day. Anyway, I don't want to cry for the video's barely begun. So, before I go any further, I'm about to spoil the whole episode for you. So if you haven't seen it yet, please go and watch it before you watch this video. And I was about to say, also don't leave any leaks or Bible spoilers down below, but we're done. I don't have to say it anymore. Hopefully, unless something else happens. Let's not get too ahead of this yourself. However, that being said, as of right now, I haven't seen episode 26 yet. I just like to keep them, you know, separate in my mind, and I think I'd been too much of a mess to film 2 commentaries if I'd already seen 26. So I've only seen episode 25 right now, and part of me is kind of questioning that decision because personally for me, I always feel like the finale of Miraculous is more so written as like a longer 40-minute episode. Like they work really well back to back, the 2-parters, which, you know, is good. They should do. The season 3 finale not as much, but I think the season 2 finale works really well and the season 4 finale works really well with the episodes 25, so Risk and Catalyst really setting up for episode 26, and then usually episode 26 is really cool because it's had such a good and kind of lengthy setup, so I don't mind. So this was kind of like a setup episode, but it had some stuff going on of its own, which I really liked, so it did that well. Overall though, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. So like I said, maybe it's the wrong decision to watch them separately, and possibly I'll change my mind about this episode. Maybe it'll go up in rating after I've seen Recreation. I don't know, but I will have seen Recreation by the time this video goes out, so if you want to talk about it briefly in the comments, you totally can. I'll have seen it by then, but the video on it won't be up until tomorrow, but I will have seen it by the time this video goes out, so don't worry about spoiling it for me or whatever. So yeah, 7 out of 10. I did think it had a good pace and a pretty good structure to it. However, part of the reason it's a 7 out of 10, I know I should just view this episode on its own. However, I feel like this has to be said now. I feel like part of the reason I didn't enjoy this episode as much was because of the previous episode. We'll get into it a little bit more during the video, but that's kind of part of the reason. I know I should judge this episode on its own, but I feel like this episode was kind of ruined slightly because of what happened in representation. But anyway, so I love the opening. It was so cheerful. I filmed a reaction. I was like, oh, so cheerful, when inside I am not with the music, and I was just like, yeah, no. That was awful. I also loved the Akuma, just watching Gabriel babes fly all over the world like a cursed tooth fairy collecting nightmares instead of teeth. It was it was great. And Marinette's nightmare, oh my gosh, like Adrien's we've seen before. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Marinette's, so I was like, yeah, okay, I kind of guessed the dragon was like there for Adrien. Turns out no, it's actually Gabriel, and then she kind of like accidentally touches him with her sword, and then Adrien's like, Dad, no, Marinette, how could you do that? I was just like part of me does kind of think if Adrien doesn't find out the truth, because as of watching this episode he has no idea what's going on, he might hate her if like he thinks like his dad, whatever happens to it, because I don't know what happens, like is he gonna die? Maybe, I don't know. It's her fault, you know? Is he really gonna hate her for that? Like, oof, like she has to tell him. She has to know. Anyway, I'm not going to speculate too much, literally I'm going to edit this video and then I'm going to watch episode 26. So there's no point me theorising about the next episode. I'm going to watch it in like an hour's time, so there's no point doing that. But oh my god, so she goes downstairs, talks to her parents. Tom's nightmare, a bit strange, but okay. Sabine's nightmare, I hope we get that as an episode next season, where Tom turns into, to Werebaker, she gets trapped inside Brioche, and there's like an army of croissants. I badly want to see that, please. I need that as an episode. A full on it, oh my, yes, love it. So then we move to Adrien, and I really liked the whole sequence of him in his cell. I really liked it, how he was really struggling, going back and forth and stuff, and then the Alliance, the robot comes in, gives him the Alliance ring, he throws it, and then it comes back in with another one, apparently infinite supply of them, and he turns it all the way up and puts it on the camera so his dad can't see. Part of me did just want Adrien to transform and get out of there. Like, he was safe at that point. I kind of get what he was saying, is that like he wasn't able to do it, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like Marinette seemed to be able to, I mean, she hasn't overcome it completely, but enough to do what she needed to do. Alia was making great headway, so were the rest of the kids by the looks of things. So I'm a bit like, not sure I believe you, but then again, Adrien's also been through quite a bit in the past like 24 hours, as they said, like Nadia on the news at the start, she was like, Adrien Kagami arrived in London yesterday, so it hasn't been a long time at all. So I understand he's been through quite a lot. I really want him to come and fight his dad. Like, he deserves to be there. It's his dad, you know? So I'm a bit like, okay, whatever. I just kind of just want him to be like, you know, screw this, screw you, you've been abusing me, I'm gonna transform, get out of here, goodbye, I'm not your son anymore, sort of dramatic kind of thing, because it's the finale. So that's kind of what I wanted. I am a little bit sad that he's not there for the showdown. I'm still holding out hope that he's gonna arrive in the next episode, but I truly don't know. So then Nathalie, oh my gosh, so Gabriel Babe's up in his life, he's like, okay, time to transform back and do what I'm doing. And then Nathalie is like, turned off Emily's life support, whatever it was, she turned it off. Whatever it was, she turned it off. So he runs downstairs, goes to switch it back on. I so badly wanted her to shoot him or whatever. I think, yeah, shoot him I think is the correct word here. I just showed, like, because she hesitated, how much of a better person she is. Don't get me wrong, like, everyone goes on at me like, oh Hayes, why do you like Nathalie so much? She's such a terrible person. I'm like, yeah, I know she's not like a great outstanding citizen. Okay, she shouldn't get like a Nobel Peace Prize for what she's done. I know she's not an amazing person, but it shows she's at least a better person than Gabriel, because like he was obviously lying to her, like, do you really think I'm a monster? And she obviously hesitated. That was her moment to shoot, and he tosses it out of her hand. Yeah, my heart was breaking, and I'm like, just in general, I'm skipping ahead slightly, did she die? Because in that moment when he's carrying her, I thought she had died, but then he's talking to her upstairs in her room, and he gives her the alliance ring, and then Ladybug talks to her. So at the end of that conversation, is she dead? It wasn't clear to me. Maybe it'll be made clear in the second part, but in this first part, that's not a criticism by the way, just a question. I was like, is she dead? I didn't cry, I was nearly there, but I didn't cry because I just wasn't sure. I was very sad, don't get me wrong. I was like, is my girly pop, my queen Nathalie dead? Anyway, going back to one of the issues I have with this episode. So there's been a lot of discussion on this, not just under my videos, under other people's videos and on Twitter and stuff, about whether or not Marinette found out that the tailor in Felix's story in Representation was Gabriel. Now obviously we all know he is Gabriel, but did Marinette actually definitively work out that Gabriel Babes was the tailor, aka Monarch Daddy, Hawk Daddy, Shadow Daddy, may he rest in peace, etc. So to me, I felt it was fairly obvious she did. However, after having rewatched the episode, I rewatched it again last night, as I usually do before a new episode, I could see that she didn't seem to put two and two together in that moment, you know? It was just, yeah, I guess it was vague, they weren't using names. However, during the play in Representation, she does work out, because she says his name, she does work out that one of the Senti children is Felix, because she says Felix's name. She knows it's him towards the end of the play. I couldn't tell you which part exactly, but she says Felix. She's aware it's him. So if you know that child is Felix, then you know his mum is Emily, his sister is Emily, and that her Senti child is Adrien, and the tailor, the person with the power to do this and who you traded the Miraculous for, which was shown visually to Marinette, like they had the Miracle Box and the Dog Miraculous and the Peak Miraculous drawn, it should show to her that she was Gabriel. So giving her the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't completely 100% clear to her while she was watching, I think she should have been able to work it out afterwards. So it kind of just makes her motivation seem a little bit off in this episode. I get her wanting to protect Adrien, but like what Felix and Kagami were asking of her, well, first of all, not to stop Monarch, just basically to let them be together as a couple basically, but their parents were stopping it from happening, or their families rather were stopping it from happening. So I'm like, it's a bit of an odd motivation. I feel like if they got in and say, we need you to help stop him just in general, but you know, also we want a date, but just, you know, in general, stop him from, you know, destroying the world and making this wish and stuff. Like, it seems a bit odd because there's like really no mention of that in Marinette's motivation. Honestly, this episode kind of plays out as if representation didn't really happen. I feel that if you hadn't seen representation, if you've seen 1 to 23 and then just gone to 25, I feel like it would still make sense to some degree. Maybe some things apart from like Cat Noir's nightmare. I think other than that, this episode would still largely make sense without representation. Representation is just a bit strange. So it seems odd that she has the realization that Gabriel is Monarch Daddy in this episode when she was already largely told, and if she didn't work out in the moment, she had enough information to work it out afterwards, which is why representation is so odd. So maybe I'm projecting my dislike of representation, which is even heightened now after seeing this episode, because I absolutely loved Marinette's reaction. Obviously she doesn't know he's there. Like, she's going around the room, she finds Master Fu's tablet, she finds Nathalie's tablet with like the stuff from Optogami where they're working out who's who they need to eliminate, so Marinette, so Ladybug couldn't use them, sorry. She's hiding, he brings Nathalie in, he de-transforms, she's like, oh my god. I loved that reaction. So for her to basically find out in the episode previous, or have enough information to work it out, and she just doesn't, is very, very strange. Like, so I really wish, I'm not sure how they could have done the story instead in representation, but I really wish it hadn't been so heavily hinted at that he was Monarch, because I really felt like it took away from her reaction in this episode, if that makes sense to you. So like I said, I think it's more of a criticism for representation, but I just feel like it had to be discussed in this video because obviously when I saw representation, I hadn't seen this, so I didn't know. But it was just definitely an odd choice. And like, again, I said, like, Felix and Kagami, at the end of that play, they basically tell Marinette, like, you're kind of like us, no one knows who you truly are. For that reason, please help us. And she ended it being like, yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. But it was like, if they hadn't told her the person who was manipulating them, how would she have begun to help you, you know? So that seems a bit strange in and of itself. And then whilst I can understand her motivation in this episode wanting to be to help Adrien, both because of her nightmare and just because of how she feels about Adrien, completely understandable, it seemed that the events of representation, which only happened yesterday by the sounds of things, just seemed to not have happened for her. So I don't know if she was truly writing it off as a dream, but like with the way representation ends with her stepping up and saying, yeah, I'm gonna help you, kind of makes it seem like she acknowledged it as it was real. So yeah, representation is just a bit of a strange episode, isn't it? I feel like it does kind of ruin this episode because her reaction in this episode to finding out who he was, absolutely perfect, but it just makes her motivations seem very, very strange. And I'll be brutally honest, I don't like it. It's just odd. The motivations don't line up. They're basically, the linear structure of where the plot leads off in representation doesn't even really lead into this episode. Representation therefore kind of goes nowhere. So it makes this episode seem a little strange. Did anyone else think that? Did anyone else think this episode was a little strange? How it opened because it doesn't lead on from representation in some way? It's like completely different? I don't know. Maybe I'm just making stuff up to complain about, but I don't think I am. Like, I love the show, I want to give it a fair shot, but like, I'm like, if I think there's something up, I'll say so. If I think something's good, I'll say so as well, you know? I like to see it from both. Like, I love, this is my favourite show. I don't go all the way to Paris to see the movie if I hated it, you know? I love this show. But like, the two episodes next to each other don't make sense. They don't like follow on from each other. Very strange, very strange. So anyway, I did kind of think the things with the rings were a little bit ridiculous. However, again, it was kind of like hypnosis, so I guess, so how they're all like, so they got these nightmares, which I was like, yeah, okay, perfect, I liked that part. And then they were being hypnotized by like the meditation app or whatever on the rings, which I kind of like how it was foreshadowed, like we've had the meditation throughout the whole season. Every so often it's like, you need to take some deep breaths, and everyone was like, no. Like, was it in think it was it in like transmission or deflagration, Gabriel comes into Adrien's room, he's like, here's a ring, have a relaxing session with Alliance Loyal, and Adrien's like, yeah, no thanks, I'd rather die. He doesn't say that, but you know what I mean. So I kind of like how that's been kind of carried throughout the season, and like obviously I thought nothing of it because why would I think anything of like a breathing app? I wouldn't. So I really like how it was so like underdone, but it ended up being so important. So I kind of liked it up until there. Then obviously they do the thing where Ladybug and Cat Noir are like, hey no, like we're gonna kidnap you, and then they're like, oh, they've kidnapped the real things. I don't I did think it was a little silly, but I was like, okay. It's believable enough, but I was a bit like, you've had better motivations in the past in the show, so I was a bit unsure about it. And then the quantum imprint, like, just from like a professional science fiction writer, quantum is what science fiction writers put in front of stuff when they don't know how to explain something but they want to have it, so they just stick quantum in front of it and hope no one will ask questions. That's all it means, it's not a real thing. That's all it means. I do it all the time, just stick quantum in front of it and it works. Sounds intelligent, you're just like, oh, you're not smart enough to understand this, we'll just stick quantum in front of it. Jobs are good. And so whilst like the general idea is fine, obviously it wouldn't work in the real world, I'm a little bit confused, like why didn't they do it sooner? He got cataclysmed in episode 3, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so I was trying to go back through my head and I was 100% sure. So I know Gabriel was akumatized in the previous episode, but he didn't receive a charm for that. So I think the charm is from episode 5 Illusion? Possibly. It may have been a little later, I was trying to go back through my head, but I just couldn't quite remember, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But let's just assume he's had it since Illusion, and he was cataclysmed in episode 3, so surely he's been able to do this quantum imprint thing since the end of episode 5 then, right? From the moment she gave him the charm, or whenever she gave him the charm, if it was in a different episode. Would I be correct to assume that? Was it they just didn't have the technology to do it? Did they need this ultimate alliance to do it first? I wasn't quite sure, because I was like, if you've had this since episode 5, you've been able to do this, why haven't you done this? So I was a little confused why they hadn't done it sooner, basically. Is it just because they needed all these other people to like turn into like the puppet things? Did they get a proper name? I didn't remember seeing a proper name for them. Is that the reason why? Wasn't sure, maybe it'll be explained a bit more in episode 26, but right now, I don't know. So the ending, the whole ending, extremely creepy. So after Marinette's de-transformed and the lasers on the rings go off, and he's like, I can feel it, she's in my house. Amazing. And then Plag arrives and Marinette's like, yeah, this is where Monarch lives, and he's like, what? Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, how come you never noticed it? Waves could tell someone transformed into Hawkmoth from across the city. You didn't know though? You live in his house! Amazing, but then the ending was sick. I was like, on my reaction when he just yanks her out of the cupboard, and I was like, are you not gonna notice she's Marinette? Thankfully he does, and he's like horrified for a moment. He's like, either Marinette is just hiding in my house trying to find where Adrien has gone, or she's Ladybug. Like the look of shock was amazing. Loved him finding out in this episode that she was Ladybug all along, and then she's like, no, it's not Ladybug, it's Bug Noir. And then the transformation, amazing. Not the biggest fan of the outfit, we're gonna do a whole video on the outfit, but I thought it was pretty sick. So MVP goes to Nathalie. She did an amazing job. I hope she's not dead. I'm truly not sure right now. Part of me just hopes she's really unconscious, like really as unconscious as you can be without dying, basically. As unconscious as possible before death. That's what I'm hoping. Please. I just love her so much. I'm in denial, okay? That's why I haven't cried, because I'm in denial, alright? I'm not gonna cry and accept it, okay? I'm not gonna do that. But yes, MVP was Nathalie, giving all the information to Ladybug about what to do in the situation. She was fabulous, showing what kind of person she is. But yeah, overall a 7 out of 10. Purely because I know I should be judging this episode on its own. I did have a good pace and I think a decent structure on it. However, it just doesn't really make sense after representation. Representation was such an odd episode. I mean, with the way representation ends, you would hope it would, you know, pick straight up or close to picking straight up, where Marinette's like, okay, I gotta help Kagami and Felix, but like, they didn't tell me any names, so who's Monarch? And then she should be able to work it out and go through it, and I was, You know, maybe I'm mixing up my expectations of the episode with what happened, which I think is definitely possible, but at the same time, I feel like it's also difficult to not see that these two episodes just don't like match up together in terms of following a chronological storyline. But at the same time, a part of me just kind of wishes representation either didn't happen or happened in a completely different way, because Marinette's reaction to finding out who Monarch was in this episode was wonderful. I really, really liked it. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one for me, because part of me did like it, but part of me is like, I feel like I'm missing the extra half of it, so I might change my mind a little bit when I've seen Recreation in a few minutes. I'm gonna be a mess. Because like I did my reaction without any makeup on because I was worried I was gonna cry. Didn't cry, so I did my makeup to film this, but now I've gotta do the other one. But I'm not going to take my makeup off for it, so I might be mascara everywhere. Anyway, besties, I'd love to know what you think of this episode. I know I didn't discuss Recreation, like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but I will have seen it by the time you see this video, so please don't worry about discussing it in the comments. I will have seen it by the time this video goes up. So of course, I'd love to know what you think of this episode. If you're gonna leave me a little essay, that's great, I can't wait to read it. But please, you know, put some paragraphs in it just so it's a little easier for me to read. Thank you very much. I'd love to know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!